Greetings. This episode relates the incident that occurred on March the 5th, 1770, that has come to be known as the Boston Massacre. Before getting started, I would encourage you to subscribe to the Mossy Feet Books YouTube channel for more great content. If you like my videos, please hit the like button. The more likes I get, the more YouTube will show it to other people, allowing me to grow the channel. I also encourage you to visit my website, www.messyfeetbooks.com. There you will find sample chapters, podcasts, a slew of content, and links to where you can buy my books. While visiting the website, you subscribe to it and receive email notifications of when I publish a new book or other content like this video and podcast. The episode is based on my book, A Day in United States History, Book 1. The road from close cooperation with the British between the American colonists in the French and Indian War that ended in 1763 to the American Revolution that severed the ties was a long and bumpy one stained with a lot of blood. To pay for this war, the French and Indian War, Parliament had imposed various taxes. Colonials protested the taxes because since the colonists had no representation in Parliament, they felt that the body had no right to impose taxes on them. When Parliament passed the Townshend Act, it had no idea that the uproar over them would lead to the British troops stationed in Boston to enforce them. They had no idea that the incidents that arose from the stationing of those troops would fuel a war in which the colonists would gain their independence. In February of 1770, an incident occurred in which a British soldier had killed 11-year-old Christopher Sider. The incident had inflamed the citizens of Boston. Patriot firebrands had whipped up the public indignation over the incident, which led to more tension between the British troops in Boston and irate citizens who wanted them gone. It was a fire waiting for a match. The Townshend Act take their name from the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Charles Townshend. Parliament had passed these acts during the years 1765 through 1767. The two most objectionable to the Americans were the Quartering Act and the Townshend Duty Act. Parliament repealed those acts in 1770, but by that time the colonies were inflamed almost beyond reconciliation. The colonists engaged in widespread resistance to the taxes. On October the 1st, 1768, British troops under the leadership of General Gage landed in Boston. After colonial resistance to the Townshend Act, the British government decided to send 2 regiments of troops into Boston, commanded by General Gage, to quell it. Paul Revere produced an engraving depicting the October 1st landing of the troops. This deployment was about as bad as a decision that they could have made. On March the 5th, 1770, outside the Boston Custom House on King Street, Private Hugh White stood guard. A young Bostonian, Edward Garrick, called out an insult to White, to which the soldier ignored. Garrick continued insulting the soldier, who finally approached Garrick and struck him on the cheek with his musket. Garrick cried out in pain. A crowd began to gather, pressing in on and threatening the soldier. The crowd grew larger as the evening progressed. The members of the mob threw threats and insults at the soldier. Someone began ringing a church bell. This usually signaled that there was a fire, drawing out people to help fight it. As people began pouring into the streets, the British soldiers' plight became more threatened. Captain Thomas Preston, officer of the watch, became aware of the situation and summoned 6 soldiers and a non-commissioned officer to accompany him to rescue White. The soldiers pressed through the crowd and surrounded White. The crowd was now several hundred people strong. Assurances were issued that the soldiers would not fire unless ordered by Preston. Since Preston was standing in front of the soldiers, it was doubtful that he would order them to fire. At this point, 7 British soldiers stood, muskets loaded and bayonets fixed, staring into a crowd of several hundred enraged Bostonians. The memory of 11-year-old Christopher Sider, killed just days earlier in a similar incident, was fresh on everyone's minds. But mobs have a mind of their own. The British soldiers were threatened. It was only a matter of time. A local innkeeper, Richard Palms, approached Captain Thomas Preston. Palms held a cudgel in his hand. After a brief exchange between the two, someone in the crowd threw an object, striking one of the British soldiers. The soldier dropped his musket. He retrieved his weapon. He was angry. The man discharged the weapon into the crowd. Palms struck Preston with a cudgel. There was a pause. Then, without orders, the soldiers fired. a ragged volley into the crowd. The volley killed three colonists immediately. Two more died over the ensuing days of their wounds. Another man was seriously wounded. The fire would grow to a conflagration in the coming years. Written in a This Day in History format, each of the two books in this collection of North American colonial history stories includes 366 history stories. The historical collection of tales includes many well known as well as some little known events in the saga of the United States. This easy to follow This Day in History format covers a wide range of people, places, and events of early American history. It is the first book in my series, 366 Days in History series. Each book includes 366 stories of American history. It is available with many of my other titles on gardening, Indiana places, and history and United States history at the Walnut Street Variety Shop in downtown Batesville. You can also order it off my website, www.mossyfeetbooks.com. There are links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other places where you can buy it in softbound, ebook, or audiobook format. And you can also order direct from me, the author. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for listening.